Hey, it's Lee Loughnane with Chicago, and you are listening to The Other Side of the Bell.
Hello, and welcome to The Other Side of the Bell, a podcast dedicated to everything trumpet, brought to you by Bob Reeves Brass. We'll help you take your trumpet playing to the next level. My special guest today is trumpeter and founder of the band Chicago, Lee Loughnane. We'll get to Lee's interview here in a moment after a word from our sponsor and some news. Today's episode is brought to you by Bob Reeves Brass, who share your passion for creating extraordinary music. You know that feeling when your instrument just clicks and the music flows effortlessly? That's what Bob Reeves Brass has been helping customers do since 1968. We've helped brass musicians like you achieve their dreams by ensuring their equipment is always in perfect harmony. We know you want to immerse yourself in the art of music making, and we're here to remove any barriers between you and your creative vision. Bob Reeves Brass is truly your one-stop shop for everything you need to fuel your passion and create music that touches hearts and souls. So go ahead, let us help you elevate your sound to new heights. Don't wait another moment to elevate your musical journey with Bob Reeves Brass. Connect with us at bobreeves.com, shoot us an email at info@bobreeves.com, and keep up with the latest news on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter at Bob Reeves Brass. Embrace your passion for music and let Bob Reeves Brass be your partner in creating the extraordinary. A huge thank you to everyone who visited us either at TMEA or at the National Trumpet Competition last week. It's been quite a whirlwind start to the year. It always is. This is always our busy season. And as always, we've sold out on valve alignments and some horns and plenty of mouthpieces found happy homes at these events. So thank you to everyone who came by. Also, a lot of podcast listeners came up. I really need to start making a list. We're so crazy at these events, but so many of you come up and say you listen to the podcast. Some of you are longtime listeners. Some of you just found out about the podcast and have 128 episodes to go back and binge listen. So thank you. It means a lot. And I also get a lot of suggestions for guests, and some of these folks coming up this year are thanks to listener suggestions. So make sure you get those into me. This is your podcast as much as it is mine in the shops. And so we want to get on as guests the people you want to hear from. So that being said, a few things I want to mention. We are going to be around town for a while, but we do have some trips scheduled. The first trip is to Dylan Music in New Jersey. We don't have the dates nailed down yet, but that will be later this spring, most likely late April, early May. So put that on your calendars. Make sure you follow us on social media. Make sure we have your email address so that we can let you know when we get out to New Jersey and New York, right across the bay there, for valve alignments and mouthpieces with our good friends at Dylan Music. End of May, the International Women's Brass Conference in Connecticut. I believe that's at the Hart School. That's Memorial Day weekend. We're 99% sure we're going to be at that. If for some reason we're not, we will definitely have our mouthpieces there with one of the local music stores. ITG is coming up then that following week at Salt Lake City. We always go all out for that. That'll be at the University of Utah that week after Memorial Day. So last few days of May, first few days of June. Also working on another Europe tour and also working on an Australian tour. It's been, 6.5 years since we've been to Australia, and can't wait to go back. So I think the important part is follow us on social media, go to our website, make sure we have your email address so we can blast away at you. Not too often, maybe once a month, but to let you know where we're going to be. A couple things. We just started carrying the new Hirschman mutes, the Kenny Rampton plungers, the KR Indigo and the KR Indigo Max. With the trademarked Kenny Penny valve system. Wonderful, wonderful plunger mute for trumpet. And we're going to have Kenny on a future episode. He explains about the development of those mutes, and a fascinating story and a wonderful mute. We have those in stock now to add to all the other great mutes we have. We also got the Hirschman Pixie mute in stock, picked up some of those as well. We also got some new Ulven Pixie mutes. So two great designs, Not a lot of Pixie mutes out there, but we have two of the best, if not the two best, in terms of sound and intonation. So big thanks to Kenny Rampton and Ed Hirschman from Hirschman Mutes, and of course Lasse Lindgren at Ulven Mutes for making such great products to add to the mouthpieces we make. Speaking of which, we get a lot of calls and questions about consultations. Our consultations are always free. You can schedule a phone consultation online anytime with us. And if you want to come in and visit the shop, it's highly recommended. Not very many places you're going to find 300 plus. I think we have 350 mouthpieces in stock. And either Brett or myself or one of our other staff to help you choose the correct one. All that is available at bobreeves.com. That's all the news that's fit to print. And let's get right to our interview with Lee Loughnane. My guest today is Lee Loughnane, a founding member and legendary trumpeter of the iconic band Chicago. Born in Elmwood Park, Illinois, Lee began his musical journey playing his father's Bach Stradivarius trumpet. In 1967, while attending DePaul University, Lee co-founded a rock band with horns that later evolved into Chicago. Lee's contributions include co-writing hits like Call on Me and No Tell Lover, and beyond his trumpet playing prowess, he has taken on lead vocals on tracks such as Song of the Evergreens and Together Again. Over the decades, Chicago has achieved remarkable success, including 5 consecutive #1 albums on the Billboard 200 and 21 top 10 singles on the Billboard Hot 100. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2016 and received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2020. And now, without further ado, here's my interview with Lee Loughnane. Well, I am so excited to have my special guest today, Lee Loughnane from the band Chicago. And what's incredible to me is I was watching you from the back row of a sports arena just a few months ago, and now here we are face to face. So,
really? What sports arena?
I'm so excited. Palm Desert. Back in September, I saw you guys with the double bill with Earth, Wind, and Fire. And
yes,
so,
right.
Yeah,
that was a fun show.
Yeah, and who'd have thought? And here I am chatting with you now. So let's get going, Lee. Thank you for being here, and let's start.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you. And let's start right from the beginning. How did you end up on trumpet?
Great question. My father had played the trumpet when he was in the service. In fact, he grew up in Chicago as well on the south side, and he somehow picked up the trumpet. I'm not quite sure why or how he started himself, but when he went into the Army, he was still a musician. And I never actually heard him play, amazingly enough, because by the time he came out of the service, he had stopped playing. And the only thing he brought home was his horn. In fact, he was pretty much turned off to the music industry because there was so much booze and drugs going on. And, you know, he had to cover for a lot of his guys because it was wartime. And he was, guys from all the great big bands of the day, the dance bands, would come through his band first before they got shipped overseas to the front lines or wherever they got shipped to next.
Interesting. So he got to play with some of the greats then, some of the guys coming off the bands.
Or at least listening to him. I'm not sure how much he played with the band, but he was definitely the conductor.
Involved in it. Interesting.
Yes, yeah. And he never went overseas himself, which I think was probably a marvel at the time because, it seemed like they would have been able to find another band director.
Yeah.
But, I have no idea what the reasoning was. But he would have guys, come out of the Tommy Dorsey and Jimmy Dorsey band and Glenn Miller band, all the bands, and then they would go while they were with him on the weekends or probably anytime they felt like it, they would go AWOL and go play a gig somewhere and come back stoned or drunk or whatever. Yeah. And he would cover for them. At least that was the story I got. And I'm sure sometimes he probably, had got fed up with it and didn't cover anymore, and they got thrown out of the service or something.
Yeah.
Whatever happened at the time, or deserters, or whatever they would have called it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
that's a crazy time. Fascinating to think about all these basically, jazz musicians getting thrown into the service.
Musicians coming in with and training with a broom because they didn't have enough guns to go around.
Yeah, fascinating. So, so that was his background. So, did he get you on trumpet after
he
the service?
came home, and the only thing he kept was his trumpet. He didn't bring in any of the mutes or any of the other paraphernalia with him, and he just put the horn up in the attic in the house. And when I was old enough to join a band, he asked if I was interested in like playing the trumpet. He must have been talking to my mom or something, and they went, "Hey, let's ask him if he wants to do that." So we went and saw the band director at St. Celestine's grade school in Elmwood Park, and he took a look at my teeth to see that I wasn't going to damage myself in any way. And I passed muster, so I started playing the trumpet, and I haven't stopped since then. That was 11 years old.
11 years old.
So that's like fifth grade.
Fifth grade, yeah. Fifth grade.
Wow.
Yeah. So you were young. So you were in elementary school. You get handed this trumpet, and I mean, did your father try to help you, or would you learn through the band program?
I learned through the band program, and he got me private lessons with a guy named John Nuzzo, who was like a working weekend musician. And but he had been around the block. He had learned all kinds of tunes, and he was able to do weddings, and like the guys that you talk to now, like Wayne Bergeron and Arturo Sandoval, they have to get themselves ready for everything. They have no idea once they take a gig what is going to be put in front of them. So they have to be ready for jazz, rock and roll, big band, high notes, low notes, medium. Wayne and Arturo always high notes, or at least solos and stuff.
Yeah.
But they have to be ready for every type of music, and I have, for whatever reasons, never had to do that because I joined the band Chicago.
Yeah.
And we had no idea where we were going, and that was all. We were all still in the learning process of what this music thing is.
Yeah, I want to delve into that. I'm curious. Like, your early inspirations, were they from your dad? Were they the dance band, the big band players, or were you listening to the radio?
I used to listen to his records, so I listened to Glenn Miller, and right, and so I played along with that stuff. And then when Maynard came out, I tried playing along with his, and I was going, man, I'm never going to get up to those stratospheric notes. And as of yet, I still haven't. And I'm closing in on an octogenarian, so it's not likely that I'm going to be up in the stratosphere anytime soon. But I got some pretty good range for my age, I think.
Yeah, and still cranking out shows, man.
Yes.
That was an amazing show, as I mentioned. So did you want to be a musician? Like, once you started playing trumpet, did you fall in love with it?
Once I started, I fell in love with it, and there was no turning back. Mm-hmm. In fact, originally, when I was doing more of the band training, I'm pretty sure that was the time. The guys would come by my house and go, "Yo, Lee," and they'd want to go play baseball. Mm-hmm. And my dad wouldn't let me go because I had to practice first. So that angered me initially. And then when I started enjoying practice, and I told him I wanted to, I had decided I liked it enough where I was going to do this as a career. I was going to become a professional musician. He tried to talk me out of it, and I went, now it's too late. Sorry. Now it's too late. I'm in.
I think you did pretty well for yourself. But I don't know. You haven't retired yet.
I haven't retired, but retired to what? Where am I going to go? Right?
You love what you do.
You know what? Yeah. I think I'll become a major golfer.
There, in your second career.
My second career, yeah.
I love it. So, but you went to university for music, right? In the Chicago area?
DePaul University.
I mean,
And I never actually graduated. Walt Parazade was the only one of the band who graduated from college.
did he hold that over your head? Did he have the diploma on the tour bus?
No, he did not. He
Oh, okay.
did not. But and I always initially I was threatening to maybe go back to school and finish a degree, but here I am. That was a long time ago.
So let's talk about your college years. Were you studying classical trumpet, or
I was in music education. I really had no aspirations other than to work on music, and there wasn't anything specifically. But I liked classical music. I liked rock and roll. I liked jazz. I liked big band. So, and I think, when you look at the way we phrase over the years, over the decades, you hear all of those styles within our playing. Sometimes within a bar with, a section of the tune is like, ba, 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 ba. Right, and then the next one is within the same song. So, and that just comes from what we grew up listening to and enjoying ourselves. And I think everybody in the band pretty much did it the same way. That's why nobody knew when we first came out with the first album where to put us in the music store. They hit, what are they? So they made up that term, jazz rock.
Jazz rock,
and that became our title.
Yeah, which is just amazing to think about. Like, I mean, you
pretty weird.
Yeah, you defined a genre.
Right. Well, we used to say too that they named a city after us.
and I know this is probably well traversed territory, but can you take us to the beginnings of the band? I mean, you started as a cover band, right? Was the big thing? You guys getting together?
Yeah, the big thing was a cover band, and that was after the Missing Links broke up. And I used to go sit in with the Missing Links, and we'd just play, James Brown tunes, and they were trying to get a hit record too. And when that pretty much failed, they realized they weren't going to go anywhere. They wanted to form another band with horns and go to Vegas and play in those little smaller clubs in the casinos. And you go in and put on a show, a little tiny show, and they go, "Hey, okay," or get drunk and throw shit at you.
Yeah, like the lounge acts and stuff. The
lounge acts,
right.
Right. So we got two pairs of pants and a suit with two pairs of pants, and tried doing some steps and stuff. But thank God we didn't have to do the steps, or we would have never made it. And Michael Jackson came after us, so that's when all of that dancing stuff happened. In every song, you had to dance.
Oh yeah, I have to ask you because I've played in a number of cover bands and played obviously Chicago tunes. So right. I mean, you started as a cover band without Chicago to cover. You mentioned James Brown. Like, what other stuff were you guys playing? What other stuff?
We were doing top 40 stuff and a lot of mostly R&B because that's the stuff we liked the most. We did like the Letter by the Box Tops. We did Motown stuff. As much as we could, and then when the Beatles came out, we started doing Beatles tunes. In fact, I played bass. I played on bass for a little help from my friends, and that was when all of those lyrical bass lines.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom. Fun stuff. Thank you, Paul.
Give your chops a little rest too.
Well, yeah, that felt good then. But, when I look back on how I played all through the years for decades, it was just like blasting, just, thinking I was holding back, but blasting at the same time because we couldn't hear well enough to figure it out. Now I have ear monitors in, and through, really listening to Wayne and Arturo and various other players on Google, they talk about how they get that first note going and just get that first position of that's the good spot of the note, the perfect spot where the note really should be sitting. And then, doing stuff to work on the muscles just around the mouth and keeping this subtle so that the only thing it has to do is buzz. And when it hits a mouthpiece, it goes, you hear the buzzing sound. You can hear the buzzing sound without the mouthpiece, but it's harder to hit the notes. And I mean, a lot of those guys could do all that stuff. They can hit the notes.
See, earlier in your career, you were just kind of more blasting, for lack of a better word.
Blasting every night. And and I got used to it. When you blast that hard, there's a lot of things you screw up at certain points. So there are things that I still hear today that we recorded or that were recorded while we were playing. And I'm going, oh yeah, I took that one down an octave. Oh yeah, I remember that one. I almost remembered like the specific night. I mean, and then Jimmy Pankow, the trombone player, wrote so many parts that we had very few rests. The horns were always playing from one section of the song to the next. And we said, Jimmy, we need like 4-bar rest or something. Oh no, we got to play pads there, So which beat the hell out of you even more when you're playing pads, even if it's in the middle register. Right? I mean, and I know trumpet players know what I'm talking about.
So. And the folks that have to play that stuff now, it looks deceptively, easier than it is until you get 2 or 3 Chicago tunes in a row.
Oh my God! And then you go ba 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 ba. How many times am I gonna play that? Ba, ba.
Oh my gosh! So I mean, was there a moment then when you went from a cover band to being, well, I guess it was Chicago Transit Authority first, but being a band of original tunes and with your own works?
We had original songs. Well, actually, Robert had a book of like 50 original tunes that he had started writing way back when. And we started bringing them out in clubs, and then we would find out very quickly that the owner didn't want us to play that, and if you played it twice, we got fired. And so, we had the choice between whether we wanted a gig or not. Yeah, basically. So we put up with it for a long time until our first producer brought us out to California, and in fact, before that, there was a club called the Barnaby's, and the owners, we did some strange drug deals with them too. But and so our 15-minute breaks were to smoke a joint, and that's when Cetera got involved with us. All of a sudden we needed a bass player because the bass pedals on the organ were not cutting, didn't have enough punch with them. So we needed a bass player, and he was sick of his band and came over and joined us. And he came out of the drinking crowd. So we were mixing the hippies with the drinkers. And that was our first mix. And that wasn't the musical mix. That was the booze and drugs mix.
It's amazing that anyone made it out of the 60s.
It's amazing we lived. I mean, I'm quite serious. It's amazing that I lived. I don't know if you saw our 50th anniversary documentary.
Yeah, actually, I saw it flying home from somewhere. Boston or someplace I saw that on. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to watch a terrible movie. I can watch you guys with all those special guests. That was amazing. Yeah.
And then we did a 55th anniversary documentary. And that was to show that after the 50th year, most bands break up. You never hear from them again. Or it's like, where did those guys go? What happened to them? Where are they now? So we did a 55th anniversary documentary to document that not only were we still playing, and it's 58 years now. We just celebrated the 58th anniversary, February 14th or February 15th. I'm sorry, the day after Valentine's Day. So we did the 55th to show that we're still playing. It's continuing on. We're not stopping anytime soon, because people still want to hear what we do and did, and it still sounds good enough where they don't throw anything at us. Everybody has a good time, and there's no reason to stop.
Yeah.
Tell you the truth. If people stop buying tickets, you'll see me home a lot more.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and that's amazing. And I brought my boys to the concert, and it's amazing to think that, almost 60 years later, you're still entertaining, and the next generation now is listening to
a few generations. How old are your kids?
8 and 14 now. Trumpet and trombone, and they're
they're in music too.
Yeah, they're doing the thing. So, and they were inspired by both bands, seeing you guys out front. And
right.
So, Lee, talk about so many different people in Chicago. So many of the members wrote and contributed. Like, what were some of the influences that you guys had that you brought into your compositions?
Well, we had jazz influences, classical influences, electronic music influences. Cage, and jazz guy Freddie Hubbard, and Lee Morgan, the Sidewinder. I mean, we wore. You talk about wearing our albums out. We wore the Sidewinder out. Cannonball Adderley. You got to walk tall. I mean, some great stuff that Cannonball and Nat did. It was and now, even now, I go back and I listen to those things so often. You turn on the radio and you hear just a couple bars and you know what it is, and I got to listen to it. You can't turn it off.
And you
Great
mentioned
music.
Like in classical. I mean, would you guys listen together as a band? Listen to music because you're hanging out together.
Sometimes, yeah. We would listen to like Aaron Copland. I think definitely Fanfare for the Common Man. We would listen to. I mean, that was oh my God! But when you listen to the whole symphony together, the third symphony, emotional.
Yeah.
Whew, such great stuff.
Yeah, and then you guys would bring that into that inspiration into your charts and into the horn writing, and
not because we're thinking, hey, let's do something like that.
Yeah.
It just we would play something that Jimmy had written, or I started writing later on in the career. The way we play it is the type of things that we used to listen to come into that phrasing.
You bring that vocabulary and
it's hard to even explain where that comes from, other than that's how we heard those notes being played.
Interesting. So Peter Cetera joins the band. You guys decide to go into the studio.
I almost hesitate to mention his name again because everybody's forgotten that he was even with us.
But he joins in, and then you guys you just decide to go into the studios and put down the first album.
Our original producer went to New York and got a deal. He was a producer at CBS. And he was able to put a deal together. That first album was a double record, which was unprecedented as well. But the songs were long enough where if we didn't do 2 records, you would have only heard like 3 or 4 songs. So I think that one only had, what was it, 7, 8 songs? I don't remember now. That's a long time ago. I haven't looked at the lineup of the first album in quite a few years.
I'm sure the internet will correct us or set us straight.
Oh my God! What do you don't know? No, I forget. Sorry.
Okay.
It doesn't matter that I know I'm going to be playing the same tunes.
Side 1 was 3 tunes. Side 2 was 3 tunes. 3 tunes on each side, so 12 total.
Right.
Yeah. There we go.
So 12 songs.
Yeah.
And that was at a time where the record companies were paying on unlimited copyrights.
Wow.
And right. So when they decided around our, I think the fifth album, when we did Saturday in the Park on the fifth album, that's when the record companies all decided they were only going to pay on 10 copyrights. Changed the music industry completely because the writers didn't want to share. If they wrote 11 tunes, all of a sudden they got to share their royalties with somebody else.
Someone else.
Besides co-writing with somebody, they had to share with another writer that didn't
Interesting.
even write the song. Right?
Interesting.
So they weren't into that, I don't think.
Yeah.
And you never hear anybody actually say that. There's got to be some logic there.
Change.
You know, it's all, everything in the world is monetary at some point, right?
Yeah. So did when you were recording the first album, did you know it would be as big of a hit as it ended up being?
Had no idea. None. We just knew the material real well. The only thing we didn't know was how to record, you know. And then when we heard that the microphones are going to pick up every little thing that you do, that scares you to the point where you make more mistakes than you normally would. So we had to settle into that and basically learn how far to stay away from the mic, you know, if you're doing an overdub, and because I think on the first album, we doubled the same parts. So we did a basic version, and then we doubled on another track, and that's how you got that buzzy sound, because we were close enough in tune that it buzzed, right? And we played the same notes on both tracks. So, and they were close enough together, tuning wise, where it went, and we, what is that noise? And I'm sure everybody who heard that went, what is that noise? I guess they don't know how to voice. They don't know how to change the voices so it doesn't buzz. I don't know.
So,
Anyway.
so the first album was, I mean, it was obviously commercially successful, but it was also
Yes.
a learning experience for the
Oh,
band.
for us? Oh,
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And it was so successful that we were stars in Europe. The first time we went to Stars, we were big. I mean, the first time we went to Europe, we were big stars already.
You're already
And we had no idea what that meant.
couple
And
bunch of music majors from Chicago.
Chicago. Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then when we came back, the album started to take off in America. But AM radio would not play our singles that we released because they said we didn't have a hit yet. And you know, catch-22, how are you going to have a hit if you don't play the song?
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
And when we released the second album, so we just kept playing colleges all over the country. And that's how we built our initial audience. And while we were out, we were writing simultaneously, or the writers were writing the second album. When we got home or when we'd have breaks, we'd go into the studio and record those songs. It's where, you know, Ballet for a Girl in Buchanan came from. And that specific song, the radio, Top 40 radio, decided that they liked to Make Me Smile. But, of course, Ballet for a Girl in Buchanan was like 14 minutes long. So they're not going to play all of this. Cut all that classical stuff out. You know. So we edited it down so we had Make Me Smile and then Make Me Smile reprise. We just sort of spliced the tape out of there and taped them together, and we were done.
That was it.
And that was, I think, 3.5 minutes or three, whatever the hell it was.
Yeah. Perfect radio length.
Exactly. As much as they would allow us to play is what we had.
Wow.
So that became our first hit.
Well,
And,
that's fascinating. So you were big in Europe, but then you still couldn't get radio play in the U.S. So you basically, how did you fund the tours? Was that the label doing that, going to the colleges, or
I don't know. I just kept playing.
You guys just kept going.
No, let's play another one. Truly, I don't think any of us really knew anything.
He just showed up and
I'm
played.
not sure we know much more now, but.
But you had management, and
by.
you had management, and
Yeah.
the infrastructure by that point.
Yeah, you had to give them something to steal. Oh, sorry, guys. Did I say that out loud?
I
No.
love it. I love it. How do you really feel, Lee?
Oh, no. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me to still be here is miraculous. For the band to still be here is a testament to the strength of the music that came through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because especially with there's so many different aspects to a band. I mean, you guys are a family, but you're also a business. You're also artists,
Right.
and your personalities. You're like a family, and any one of those boxes can cause the reason why bands
do. So I mean, we could have broken up probably a few hundred times in 58 years.
But but you guys
Maybe
had a
more.
common love for the music and the tunes.
And once we got on stage, all of that went away, and we played. We liked the way it sounded. The audiences liked the way it sounded then and still now. So whatever else was going on are the kind of things that you don't really want to hear about. Mm-hmm. You want to keep the bands on the pedestals. You don't want to hear who wrote what line in the Beatles tunes and who got put down on that Tuesday, and they should have done this, and Harrison overlooked, and all of the other stuff. You just want them to be the Beatles.
Yeah. Like that. That was the documentary that came out on Apple TV a few years ago. Where it was basically them doing that recording session and all the good and the bad, and it's like,
you could see. I mean, we've done. When I was watching it, I was going, "That looks like us." You go in and you just sort of hang around and what are you going to do? Let's eat, or you go out and have a smoke and you come back in. You want to play something? I don't know. What are we going to play? Okay, let's try that one. And if you're actually working up songs, and at that time, they were trying to still write songs and they had nothing, nothing new. That's why they went to 909, which George Martin didn't like. Because it was a tune that they wrote when they were like 17 or something, right?
Yeah.
and it became a hit too, I think.
Yeah.
The one after 909.
909. Yeah. I want to talk. Get back to Trumpet a little bit. I love talking about the band, obviously. So what, like especially in the early days of the band, like what equipment were you using?
I was using a Holton B47. Okay. And a 10.5C mouthpiece.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was smoking at the same time, so I had smaller equipment to be able to handle, I guess not having, who knows, because a lot of guys smoke, and they blow the walls down, so what do I know?
Yeah.
All I know is that I was playing what I was playing on, thinking that was the right stuff for me at the time. And then I graduated to 7C, and I've pretty much been on a 7C since then. And I had a version of a 7C with Bob when he was first in business. He started in 68 or 9?
68.
Yeah. So, and our first album came out in 69. So we started 67. We started around the same time. So he was building momentum as we were.
Yeah.
Building up a clientele and the screw-on mouthpieces and shanks and stuff, which was way beyond me. So Bob stood in one side of the room, and I just tried different things. And he went, "That's the one." I went, "Okay, well, I'll buy one of these then." Because they all felt good, but that one sounded better than the others.
How cool! So you were at the original shop down off of Melrose.
Yes, exactly.
Early days of the band. Yeah.
And I couldn't tell you to this day what it was, and you probably don't have a record of what it was either.
I'm going to go look now, see what, see if we have anything on file.
What did I have? But I would say it was probably like a 7C rim, that equivalent to a Bach, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so 41 rim probably, or 42. Or he might have, knowing Bob, he might have just threaded a Bach rim. Chop one off or carve one.
Right, I don't know. But the one you sent me felt like, I'm not quite sure what those numbers are, but that feels like a 7C. But for some reason, I haven't been able to play that. I had to go back to the Claude Gordon. the
Okay.
CG Personal. And
Yeah.
I really don't know exactly what the CG Personal is other than big.
It's big.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's
and
yeah.
a 20 drill, and I think what you sent me was 16 drill.
No, 20, probably 26 if it was our.
Oh,
I think it
20.
was our
Oh,
C
that's
cup.
right.
Yeah.
The wrong. I went
The other
the wrong
other
way
direction.
number-wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Smaller is higher.
well, it just means you have to get you out to LA, and we'll bring you in the shop again.
Right.
Some of these when you're not on the road.
Yeah, when is that?
Yeah,
I'll be
exactly.
on the road, being in LA.
Yeah. So what? I mean, did you have a practice routine? Again, still kind of focusing on the early days.
Early days, I did Schlossberg and
Mhm.
some slurs and God, I can't technical studies and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And in California, I met Paul Witt,
Mhm.
and we had a bunch of albums under our belt already, and we had just finished an album. I forget what number it was, but I knew that once I went on the road and started beating myself up pretty much, some of the range that I put into that album was going to start going away, and I was going to have to be playing it down an octave. And he said, well, I can show you a couple things if you want. And, he outlined a couple of the Claude Gordon books and colon, lip flexibilities.
Mhm.
And I've been playing those on out of those books ever since. And
Amazing.
probably fewer books through the years than all of the other guys that you will even talk to. And, because everybody's changing teachers, and they get a new book with a different teacher and probably, a different style of playing and all of the other things that go on.
Mhm.
I've pretty much stuck with things that work for me, and we work so much that I don't want to change too many things too quickly.
Yeah.
And, 50 years, that's not very quickly.
Yeah. Well, but and as you started the interview with, you have a unique position in that people
Exactly.
you know exactly what you're going to play, and people
Right.
are showing up expecting to hear, does anybody really know what time it is? And the solo played a certain way, and the
Yeah,
the
and
charge played a certain way.
I started playing, different renditions of the solo, and then after a while I went, I'm not sure that works. Because when I listen to like the Eagles or the Beatles for that matter,
Mhm.
they play their songs pretty much how they recorded them,
Yeah.
and they still have some nuances to them, so it's not completely exactly by rote. Oh my God, you have to hit that note and only hold it 3.5 beats. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So you're not really locked in. It's still free, but the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as guys have come through, and a few guys obviously have left our band, and Terry unfortunately died.
Mhm.
So anybody that came in is not Terry.
Yeah.
They're them. But they heard Terry, they want to emulate Terry, and they want to play the arrangements the way we had them written, but they are able to bring their style into it, and we don't stop them from doing that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you
That's
don't have
great.
to sound like anybody other than yourself playing
Yeah.
the parts.
Yeah, and it's like you think about like the dance bands and the big band stuff. If you're sitting in a casual and playing String of Pearls, people
Right.
would expect to hear some semblance of that famous trumpet solo.
But
Yeah,
I did the same thing. I just
yeah,
did it in a different key when we did the big band album.
yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
right.
You guys. So, but I mean, were you? Would you consider yourself a practicer even from the
Oh
early days
yeah.
of the band? You would do a
Oh,
daily routine and
every day. I still do it now.
wow.
Oh yeah. And having seen a lot of the Google stuff with Wayne and various other trumpet players, they start out with that, centering that first note.
Mhm.
Get started right. Make sure that note and you're not forcing it out. You're just sort of letting the lips buzz, because that's their only job, no
Mhm.
matter what register you're in.
Mhm.
Everything else can be, firm and solid and built up. Somebody feels your muscle. Oh my God, your muscle. But the center, soft, supple, must be. If
Mhm.
that gets hard, you get the air notes. I wonder why it doesn't buzz, because you just flattened it, you dummy.
It makes so much sense when you say it. So, and I want to get back. So you were saying like you recorded the one album with more of the high register stuff, and you started working with Paul Witt.
Yes.
Did the Claude Gordon stuff end up?
Here's what happened.
Yeah.
I got the Claude Gordon books, and then I just started practicing them, and I would play like a few pages of it, and then I called Paul at one point, and I told him what I was doing, and he said, "Well, you might not want to quite do it that way. I could show you a couple things if you come over to the house." So then I started, in fact, taking lessons from him and doing the routines and a metronome. And, you know, if you can't play it at this speed, take it down 3 clicks. And then practice that for, 1, 2, possibly 3 days, and then take it up a click. Mm-hmm. Or even try the, up a click the very next day. And if you can make that, you can take it up another click the next day. And when you get to the point where you can't play it, you take it down 3 clicks again. And that's how you start getting more speed, and it doesn't come overnight. The evenness doesn't come unless you work at it, and it's just, people ask me, well, what should I tell young kids how they should practice and stuff? Well, unfortunately, you have to tell them to practice, because it doesn't work unless you do. Mm-hmm. And every trumpet player and brass player on the planet knows that if you don't practice, it gets worse, not better. You only stay status quo for a couple of days before you notice it for sure. The next day, everybody else notices it pretty soon after that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right? I think it was Segovia that said that, right?
Yeah. And I'm sure I'll hack it up. But it's something like you miss one day, you notice. The second day, the audience notices, or something
everyone
like
else
that.
Does
everyone else
too.
does. Yeah. That's amazing. So you had that practice bug early on, and
yes, and I still do it now. In fact, I feel better when I practice.
Even when you're off the road.
Oh yeah, every day, no matter on the road, off the road. I get up and I'll have a cup of coffee and I start warming up. And if, I get up in a bad mood, and playing the trumpet makes me feel better. And I don't know what the hell that is, but it works.
I should try that. I got to try that tomorrow. So I wanted to ask, actually, I meant to ask this earlier, like Chicago really, you turned the model around from a horn section being, the 3 or 4 players sitting in the back, dancing or playing cool things, to being at the forefront. I mean, was that a conscious decision, or
Yes, it was. It was to play lead lines in and out of the vocals, so we became an integral part of the song, as important as the vocal, really. Without the brass in some of our tunes, it would sound quite different. Mm-hmm. And because there would be no brass. And we became a signature, one of the signatures of the band.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we see you guys, you go to a Chicago concert, it's, you'll have the singer up front sometimes, or sometimes they're in the back by the keyboards, but
we're probably the only band that the horns are up front a lot.
Yeah. No place to hide.
No place to hide. You're right out there.
Do you ever wish sometimes you can go stand in the back and just kind of play your notes?
No, I like what we're doing.
You like being out there?
I like being out. I just like playing on stage for people. And I had to learn how to be comfortable with that, because I wasn't always comfortable. I was always like, I don't know if I'm good enough. If it's, and every time I'd make a mistake, I go, yes, Jesus. And then after I stopped drinking, I realized that I don't have to be perfect every time. And I stopped trying to be perfect, and I'm a lot more on the money most of the time. And I think I was on the money most of the time back then, but I never gave myself credit for it.
Yeah. I mean? Isn't that funny how the mind works, right?
It really is, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I've brought up, does anyone really know what time it is? Do you know how many times you've played that solo? Do you have a guess?
Oh, quite a few. Let's see. So the 69. So we're talking, what, 58 years, 57 years?
When do you remember recording that solo?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Was,
And I asked if it was good enough. They went, yeah, it'll work.
really? Was that the
much,
first one?
That's what he said.
Did you have it figured out before, or did you just put it down?
I put it down. I just put it down. And I sort of got stuck at the top. And, I went out. I got up to the do. What am I going to do now? Do. And that was it. And I went, is that good enough? And, yeah, it'll work.
That's it.
Everybody in the world is going to hear that now.
And
So
has
good,
and
right.
So it's not. I don't know how many times if you played that solo, but how many cover bands have played that solo?
Quite a few. Yeah.
I played that. In fact, I had two introductions to Chicago. One was my band director, my high school band director. We played a couple. We had a rock band in our high school, which was kind of rare for the time. And then we did, I think, 25 or 6 to 4 in that band. Right. But actually, a year or two before that, one of my best friends was a bass player, and he wanted to do "Does anyone really know what time it is?" for the school talent show. And he had his own little band, but he wanted someone to come in and play the trumpet solo. And I was like, "What? I don't. Chicago? I thought that was a city. What is this? What is this solo?" And then I had to sit and write it out and figure it out. And I was like, "What is this stuff?"
How old were you then?
Oh, I mean, I had to have been 13, I think, 13 or 14. And
it's amazing.
And he's like, "You got to listen to this stuff." I remember putting on the album and listening. I was like, "Wow, I didn't know you could do that." That was it.
Right.
So cool.
Yeah.
So the Christmas album.
Those are always fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one? Because we got like 4 or 5 Christmas albums.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. How did that come around? Like, was it just like the label said, "Hey, you guys need to do a Christmas album"? Or
I think we finally decided to do one, and it happened to be in our 25th year, and we called it Chicago 25. And it was when we had gotten our masters back. We had put in our contract, our initial contract with CBS Sony, or it was before Sony even, it was CBS, that after 25 years, the masters will come back to the artist. And it was like $100 a master or something like that. And I'm sure every lawyer who looked at that paper went, 25 years? Sure, no problem, and then signed it, right? Without even thinking about it. 25 years, they'll be lucky if they're together 2 years from now.
Yeah.
5 years at the most, right? So 58 years didn't enter their mind. We've done the 25 years twice already. We can't go that much further because we're only going to last so long. I mean, how long could you run around like a 20-year-old on the road?
I don't know. I mean, you're giving Mick Jagger a run for his money.
Well, I'm not running around like him.
And Doc Severinsen,
Doc is doing great. Doc is a great player, yeah.
Yeah, he's 97, I think, now. Yeah.
Is he 97? He encouraged
96,
us right from the beginning.
Yeah.
We got fired there was a club in L.A. called The Factory. All the hip people, the rock stars, artists, and actors would go there for dinner. And then there was a live band that would play there too. So we would start when they were still doing their dinner or dessert or whatever it was. But at some point they were still eating, so we played like a soft set. We played like Misty and Moonlight in Vermont, and stuff like that. And inevitably, well, maybe not inevitably, but one of the actors that was sitting close to the band said it was too loud and wanted us fired as a result. And I don't know if this was the second or third time, and Doc happened to be there that night. I think Diana Ross was there, and she loved what she heard from us, and so did Doc. In fact, he said, "This is the kind of stuff that I've been wanting to do, this fusion type stuff." So he said, "Don't stop, whatever you do." Even if you get fired, and we did, we got
Really?
fired from the yeah.
And that was
the
pretty
same
early.
reason you get fired from the clubs in the original days,
Yeah.
because you played an original song and they told you not to, so you got fired.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then when they came back to see us after we became hits, we threw them out of the dressing room.
Really?
Hey, I know these guys. They played my get out of here.
That's man, and then well, and it's interesting because like some of Doc's later stuff, when he got into the fusion, sounds like it was inspired by you guys. Like
It
that's
could be.
yeah,
We were-
Zebron. I'm not know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Stuff he did in the late '70s, early '80s. You know,
It was called Zebron.
Zebron, I think was the name of the
Yeah.
group.
Right.
XEBRON. Yeah.
I think I just saw one a couple days ago, and I think he was on one of the old talk shows.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had, coincidentally this morning, we do a trombone podcast, and we had Nick
You were
Lane
saying,
on.
yeah.
Who,
Nick was on?
Yeah. Nick
Yeah.
Lane was on. So, he subs with you guys.
Yep.
And he said, and this is, I think is hysterical. He was in the recording studio with Maynard Ferguson, and you guys were in the next studio over and ended up doing a collaboration. Do you remember that? I think, was it like Street Player? I think you had Maynard on.
Oh yeah. 2 octaves higher than me.
Yeah.
And so he played the solo, and it was unbelievable. And that was at Criteria Studios, the Bee Gees studio.
Yeah. That was just completely coincidental, right? You just happened to be in there and you just see Maynard and say, hey, do you want to come over and play some notes?
Pretty much. And the same thing with the Bee Gees. We played on that intro, ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Was it Too Much Heaven or something like that?
I think yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Sounds right. I think it sounds right.
But we just did the intro and we were done, and they were amazed that we played in tune. What did you expect? We'd come in and be horrible, but we they had a strobe tuner checking to see that every note was in tune, and we stopped it right in the center.
Wow. Back when you actually had to do that, you couldn't have
right.
You couldn't fix it in post.
No fixing, vocally or instrumentally.
So I mean, so speaking of that, I mean, you guys have recorded over decades. Like, how has technology changed how you guys record? And the flip side of that, how do you still keep that quintessential Chicago sound?
Well, probably because we know what it sounded like before, and Jimmy still does most of the writing. I do some of the writing, and we just learned by continually doing it. And it's like if you hear Beatles albums one after another, they sound different, but you can tell who it is right away. There's a signature, there's a style that is undeniable, and I think that's what we have that goes along with any successful band. There's a sound that goes along with it that no one else has quite the same.
Do you prefer the one way or the other in terms of recording to tape like the old days, or
it doesn't matter as long as you get it down there, it can sound great. Because digital recording, or at least the CDs, got a bad rap initially because the studios or the record companies they wanted to have everything go immediately to a CD so they could start selling it again right away. And they overlooked the fact that in order to make a CD sound good, you have to EQ it more, which became the newly mastered or remastered. Ooh, remastered. What does that mean? It means like we're doing it the right way for the first time, 15 years later. Yeah. But that's why the CDs got a bad rap, because they used the same masters to make those CDs as they did for the vinyl. And if you use the amount of EQ on a CD that you use on the record, those needles would be flopping all over the place, right? There's no way you could handle it. So, and that's why they had to roll off the bass and the high end and just sort of squash everything into the vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
And so the vinyl, when you listen to it now, you hear what you used to hear, and you go, boy, that doesn't sound quite as open as it used to, you know. But the CDs do. The CDs can make it sound like you just recorded it yesterday.
The full,
and it's 50 years old.
Full spectrum. That's yeah. Wow. And I want to jump back. I'm kind of going back and forth here because I'm kind of going chronologically, but also getting in trumpet stuff.
I'm probably doing it too.
Yeah. Well, it's great.
You to do it.
I want to jump back to the Claude Gordon stuff because we talked about the exercise stuff you're doing, but then you also mentioned you switched over to the CG mouthpiece and you played a CG horn too, right? The large bore.
Yes, the large bore with the second valve slide going out like the Besson.
Yeah. Are you still using that today? The same horn?
I am. Same horn. I have two of them. And I just recently, now that you guys are selling the Shires, I went to Milano Music Store in Mesa.
Yeah. Shout out to Josh and all those guys there. Yeah.
I don't know anybody's name, but they're working on one of my Claude Gordons right now.
Great.
Yeah. I put a couple dents in it. So having the dents taken out and acid wash all of the stuff, right?
Get the funk out, or not some of the funk. You want to keep the good funk in.
Yeah, keep some funk in, right?
So with the touring, do you have basically one? I mean, do you have your personal horn, or do you have horns?
I carry my my Claude Gordon horn, and that's it. That comes with me everywhere I go, every airplane, every bus, every vehicle, everything.
You have a backup, or in case something goes wrong on stage?
No, because I make sure that nothing goes wrong.
It's there. Amazing.
Yeah. And, if a couple dents get in the other horns, you can take that out. I'm finally, that 4-valve Getzen B flat flugelhorn that I used all the way through the 70s. I finally blew out the compression of this second valve. As we were playing, I looked down, and the second valve slide was on the stage. Thank God we had a rug, or that would have been dented too. But I had to pull it up and like hold it in place while I was playing.
So what's great, that was anticipated my next question, because you're also known for your flugelhorn playing and using that in the band. So it was a Getzen 4-valve you've used this whole time?
And I was trying, and that was exactly why I went to Milano's to get another 4-valve. And they had some horns that I was looking at that they were, the company, of course, was saying, oh, these are the best, these are great. And I tried them, and I went, it's not happening.
Yeah.
You got any others? Yeah. So, and I picked up a Shire.
Oh, nice.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Sure. I didn't get the Shire. I tried the Shire, and then I went to, there was a French horn. I have, you know what? I have it right here. Hang on, folks.
Yeah.
He's going to get it. And then see if he can read that smaller print. Okay. Here we go. I'm almost there.
We need traveling music.
Yeah. This is it. What does that say? Can you read it? Of course
like
not.
A Courtois.
Courtois.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. You were right with the French. Yeah.
It's it. Yeah. I got that part.
So you recently started using the Courtois?
I have my trumpet case that has a piccolo trumpet, which I'm going to take out now, because we only play Baby What a Big Surprise like every 10 years. So I'm thinking we're not going to be playing that anytime soon, and I'm taking the piccolo out, and that's a Getzen 4-valve piccolo.
Getzen as well.
Yeah, so that has got very little playing in, and I have a studio on the other side of town here, and I will be recording with it. And
nice.
I'm going to trade out the Getzen for the French horn.
The Courtois,
Yeah, the Courtois.
Wonderful. So, I mean, with what, 37 or 38 albums?
38, I think.
38, yeah. How often do you pull out old charts, or do you basically stick to your standard standard
Stick
kind
to
of
the
rep.
standard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't go out. You mean older songs and
Yeah, older
put them
songs
into
or
the
it's like
set?
B-sides and things that the
We
diehard
have
fans would want to hear, but maybe no one else has ever heard.
exact
'Cause- yeah.
exactly, and the reason, and we tried that. We tried every configuration under the sun through the years, through the decades, and we have pretty much played a set that works every night. And even when we play the same thing every year, for the most part, we might take a couple of those songs and place them differently in the set. But it has a progression to it that just works, and it works every night. And it's amazing. You start thinking, are we getting away with this? We're not getting away with anything. It just sounds good, and pace-wise, it's good. Everything about it works, and but yet we still try to change things around a little bit. And when we do, we find out why that song got cut out the last time we tried to do it. You know what I mean? Because people will get up and you can actually, especially our manager, who is like our audience member, when he comes to the shows, he'll go, they got up and they were going to the bathroom, popcorn, they were talking, you know what I mean? And he'll be out there for our 2-hour show, and people are like riveted with what we're doing. So it's got, and we're the last ones to know what actually works. We love playing the songs, and we can do all of that, but we can't tell really what the audience reaction is.
Yeah.
We can only hear what we're doing.
Well, and that's a great advice, because especially musicians that interact with each other on stage, and it's not necessarily fun to play, or it is fun to play, and you enjoy playing with the rest of the group, and then the audience may have a completely different.
Exactly, it doesn't cut through with them.
Yeah.
How come they're doing that one? Something like that, whatever it is.
Yeah. But I mean, again, I'm seeing you. And the last time I saw you guys, if it had been too long, it was actually with Earth, Wind, and Fire at the Greek Theater.
Yeah.
Was that like 2004? There's a DVD
that was
of
2004. That was the first time we had played with them.
Yeah.
And it took our manager 4 years to convince
the promoters or the bookers.
Promoters. Thank you. I'm old. I can't think of words. But anyway, it took him 4 years for him to convince them that it might work. And they still were skeptical until it worked. And then they actually gave him credit for about, 6 months to a year that it was his idea.
And you guys have done that a few times, including most recently.
We have done it, I think, 5 times now.
Through
the years.
So much fun.
And this is 2024 was the last time we played in 2000. So 20 years, over a period of 20 years, we played with them 5 times.
Yeah.
5 tours. Yeah,
can't think
amazing.
Of 2 more fun groups, and it looks like you guys are having fun on stage. I mean, it may be just an act, but it honestly looks like you guys are having fun.
Well, it's an act, but we love playing the music, and we love playing their music, and they love playing our music with us, and and vice versa. So I think it could be a great Super Bowl show, but so far we haven't been chosen. Are you kidding? Those guys are still together.
We'll start a write-in campaign. We'll start.
Let's try.
I'd love to see that.
I think it would work. I really do.
Yeah. I mean,
you could fly us all in from the top of the building. Right?
With all the years on the road, I mean, you have to have. There's got to be some sort of story or something.
We did 2 King Airs, and it was somewhere in the Midwest in Michigan. We had to fly like a couple 100 miles or something, and I forget why we had to take the planes, but there was a time restriction. And 2 King Airs, brand new Rolls-Royce engines. One of the engines blew out just after takeoff, and I was sitting at the window and watched it blow. And it started. You see the flames coming out. I looked up in the cockpit, and they pushed the feather, and it put the fire out. He turned the plane around. And he said, I just came back from from Vietnam, and I'm not going to die here. And
Wow.
he pulled it in. We landed. I got on the next plane and we flew to the gig.
And
And a couple of the guys got in cars and drove to the next gig instead.
I was going to say, I couldn't even imagine getting on a plane after that, experiencing
Right after
something
that.
like that.
Well, you know what? I looked at my hand. I pulled up my hand as we were landing, and just to see if it was like Blazing Saddles. I shoot with this one, right? It was, but it was steady, and I went, "That's pretty interesting. I think I trust the guy. He's gonna keep us alive."
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I didn't expect that kind of story. I was going to say, like, band was late or something like that, but
Well, we've been late. We played a gig before any deals. We played Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Terry and I were driving the van with all our equipment in it, the organ and all of that stuff, and our speakers as they were at the time, and we drove past the club and we realized the rest of the guys weren't coming until the next day, and we were still supposed to open that night. So we were a day late for the show, and the owner let us off the hook. He didn't care. It's okay. We'll open tomorrow night then. But that was like the grand opening of the Macamba Club in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Sioux Falls,
and
South Dakota.
Everything went off good. Terry and I got a hotel, waited for the guys to come in. We went over and played the gig and moved on to the next one, whatever that was. I forget how many nights we played there, but it worked.
Hey. And I was thinking about this, your tenure, and especially with you and Jimmy together. I know Walt retired a few years ago, but so
Right.
you had the original Three Horns for, 40,
longer
50
than
years. Yeah.
Longer than any band, any horn section in the history of music.
Yeah. And you think about, well, I was like, what's in the water in Chicago when you had Bud Herseth and Jay Friedman and,
God.
those guys playing together
Bud
for
Herseth,
decades.
I put down, I remember pictures at an exhibition when he would do the promenade all the way through. I mean, I've heard different recordings of it, but the Chicago Symphony was always that great big brass sound. And Bud Herseth he did like 55 years as the principal trumpet.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And Jay Friedman on trombone just retired, I think, last year, and he's like 60 years maybe, I think, of someone. Yeah.
Yeah. When we played with the Chicago Symphony, which was orgasmic for me.
I was going to say, you got to play together.
Oh my God, it was so. And they hit some of those chords, and they still make those chords sound the same. It's like we talk about the band sounding the same or having some sort of textural sound about them. The Chicago Symphony has that.
Yeah.
And they play certain chords. You go, oh man, that's so nice.
Yeah.
And Jay Friedman took me aside and said, you could play with us if you'd like. And I'm going, man, sure I could. A little more practice.
He offered, you could have sat in with the section?
I could have sat. I think the other guys would have gone, get out of here, kid. Come on. Go ahead, get out of here. Move it along.
Any other collaborations through your years that you recall fondly?
We played with Bill Watrous.
Yeah.
That big band for our big band album. And that was great playing. And Wayne was in that band. Wayne Bergeron, and it was a great band to play with, and it added to that album. And when you remind me of this, it's like I had forgotten we even did all that stuff. It's like we've had 50 lives along with the 50 years.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, looking back at all of that, that's pretty.
So much fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe seemed like a dumb question, but would you do it again if you had the chance?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. I mean, how I lived through all the stuff that I've put my body through is miraculous in itself. So I must be here for a reason, and I'm trying to figure out what that is.
Well, to share the stories.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Anything you would change going back if you had to do it over again?
I don't think so. Because every time I got married, I thought it was for life, and I was going to stay with it. But inevitably, I was gone too long. I should have the career should have been over. And obviously, most careers don't last anywhere near as long as ours. But it happened the way it was supposed to. I have relationships with most of my children, and now hopefully that will get different years. I have different amounts of children that speak to me.
Well, I appreciate your honesty. What you guys were dedicated into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Among all the many other, I was going through the accolades for the band.
That was actually perfect timing too, because I think it was, it was 25 years after the first album, the first hit album, that you are eligible, right? And I think it took another 20 or 25 years, so it was like our 50th anniversary by the time we finally went in, wasn't it?
Something like that, yeah.
I'm pretty sure, but that was perfect time because it was the 50th year. I mean, it was what kind of press do you need? Hey, we got the award. Like, oh my God, we're still doing it.
And hopefully they figure out how to label you this time, unlike with your first album.
Yeah, right. Those jerks over in the corner there.
Don't know where to put them. Absolutely amazing, Lee. We could chat all day, and you're hitting the road next week, right? You guys, I saw the schedule. You guys are in Vegas, and then going
Las
back
Vegas,
to
the 28th, first show.
Amazing.
And then probably 100 shows after that, because I said 93 booked for this year already, but I know Peter and our booking agent are planning shows for October and November. We'll have December off, so ho ho ho.
Any signs of going back into the studio again, or are you guys?
I don't know. I'm doing some things at my studio. I don't know if they'll be on a Chicago album or just something that I put out on my own.
Really working on your own own
yeah,
charts,
yeah, I'm doing arrangements of other people's tunes, other covers, and a couple of original songs. So we'll see how it goes together and what I finally come up with. And but it's getting closer.
Oh,
I keep going on the road, so I don't have as much time to work on it.
I was gonna say it's amazing you have time to do your own project with how much.
Well, I had to build my own studio to do it.
Well, keep me in the loop because I'll have you back on and talk about that project when it's
sounds good.
When it's done.
Thank you, John.
That sounds exciting.
It's been fun.
Yeah. So obviously Chicago, you guys have the website. You can find the touring and all of that stuff. Yeah, man. This is like this is so cool. I wish we could do this in person, but maybe we can do the follow up in person. And sit in the same room together. I'd absolutely appreciate it.
Sounds good,
Lee. Before I let you go, if you could leave our listeners with one last piece of advice that you would consider your best piece of advice, what would that be?
Are this musicians I'm talking to?
I don't know very many non-trumpet players that could listen to us talk about valve oil and heavy valve caps and bore size.
Right. LCAS.
Yeah.
Fast. Right.
But actually, you're surprised. We do have a lot of people are just interested in, obviously you're with the Chicago. I'm sure there'll be people that see your name and want to hear about the band and stuff. So,
well, if you enjoy what you're doing and expect to get a lot of negativity, try not to let the negativity bother you and just keep going. If you enjoy what you're playing and who you're playing it with, don't stop. Keep going forward and practice. Always works. It works.
That's it. Man, Lee, absolute pleasure having you on the podcast, and can't wait to see you at the next concert.
All right. Take it easy, John.
Well, what an honor it was to have Lee on the podcast. I was fortunate enough to catch him in between tours. The band is already scheduled for, I think, 93 or to 100 dates already in 2025. They just came off of a long tour with Earth, Wind, and Fire, where I fortunately got to see them together. Amazing show. And Chicago is the band that put horns in the forefront of rock and roll music and pop music. They weren't just the 3 or 4 players standing in the back playing, little fills and hits and things like that. They were the melodic instruments, just as important, if not more so, than the vocals. And where would we be today as horn players without their contributions? And then, of course, their writing styles and things like that was genre defining, as we talked about. Where in the record store do you file the band Chicago? He was so gracious with his time, and he was getting ready, I think, the following week to head off to Las Vegas and start a short residency there and hitting the road. So huge thank you to Lee. What an icon, what a legendary trumpet player. And I love the fact that even though he's played in the same band for 60 years, almost 60 years, and basically knows what he's going to play from night to night, he still is a practicer. He's still dedicated to the craft, trying to make himself sound better, play better, figure things out. And you could hear that through the course of the interview. We'll have the links to find Chicago, the band, in the description and in the show notes of this episode. And I highly recommend going and hearing them live. There's an energy, as great as the albums are, there's an energy they put out in live performances that is incredible. And the fact that there are no spring chickens anymore, that they've literally been doing this for the last 58 years as of last February, and they're still sounding good. They're still looking good on stage. They're giving Mick Jagger a run for his money. So congratulations to Lee and to the band for such a long tenure. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. Of course, I always appreciate that 5-star review, and any comments you can leave helps us be visible for the next trumpet players or brass players. And we even have an oboe player that listens, I heard, since this last episode. An oboe player reached out and said they love listening to this podcast and hearing the stories. So hit that 5-star review. Send us your suggestions. As I mentioned, we have Kenny Rampton on a future episode. We have Ashley Hall Teague, the first female member of the Canadian Brass, fabulous soloist and teacher, chamber musician. And she's got if you go to her website, she's does not just performance, but also life coaching and goal coaching, things like that. Looking forward to that conversation. Jumani Smith from Michael Bublé's band and soloist and vocalist himself. And for you younger generation, the TikTok generation, you might know him as Trumpets Mic'd Up, Eric Baker, who's the co-principal of the West Texas Symphony and one of the first trumpet players, if not the first trumpet player, to go viral with his Trumpets Mic'd Up series on Instagram and TikTok. And that great interview with him, fabulous player and a great teacher as well. So hit that subscribe button. Don't miss any of the episodes. And also, if you've noticed, we are getting back on schedule. Last year was a little slow, but this year we are getting back to posting a podcast twice a month on the first and third Wednesdays. So look for those, and we'll try to stay on top of things this year. So many more trumpet players out there we want to listen to. So with that, let's go out and make some music.